from a tour of Europe. Of course, you included a visit to your son in that trip. How's this sounding? Yeah, okay, all right. I wonder what kind of support you've managed to rally for Julian Assange throughout Europe, and whether or not any of that support comes from people who might have any sort of significant say in the case.
Well, you know, while in Europe, I tried to get their support. The WikiLeaks, from that perspective, from Europe, but from the European perspective, is European publications. WikiLeaks was first registered in France. It fought its first court case in order to publish in France. The publications went out through Der Spiegel, El País, Le Monde, and The Guardian, all European publications. The staff are Europeans. So from the European perspective, this is an intimidatory act by the United States to restrict publishers, publications, and journalists. But the intimidation has already happened. It'll probably cost, I don't know, I'm not an accountant, but it'll probably cost $10 million to fight Julian's case for the next 3 years. This is already intimidatory because ordinary journalists can't do this. It's impossible. Publishers can't cope with this sort of deluge. Publications can't do it. Very rare to be able to fight this battle. As I travel around, so in Stockholm, I had a meeting, I better say we had a meeting in Parliament, and MPs came and publicated their major newspapers came and did interviews and so on. Then we had a march down the main street of Stockholm, 350 of us shouting the usual things. What do we do? No extradition, the only right decision. Well, no extradition, the only right decision. So that was good. In Oslo, we had strong. Oslo was a very good, actually. Penn and a group of people put on something like we have here tonight. In Italy, very strong. 2 meetings in Italy at the highest level of government. The chairman of the Foreign Affairs Committee is a supporter. They're setting up a cross-party committee, exactly the same as here in Australia. In Germany, a cross-party committee, and we have had 3 visits to Germany. They have what the Germans call a manifestation, we call an action, in Dusseldorf, Berlin, Cologne, and Frankfurt every week on Wednesdays. We had in the Bundestag we had a meeting that had funny though, it was an important, the house, full house, lots of MPs and MEPs, members of the European Parliament, the leader of the largest union group, powerful people, but no reportage in the major newspapers. That, you know.
Not even Reuters?
Nobody. It's sort of okay because there's real strength comes from the conversations of us, and we don't have newspapers. We use Facebook or Instagram or something. So that's what we hold up, Julian, by our conversations amongst ourselves, dinner parties, even picnics, where we reveal to each other our attitudes and swap information, and amongst healthy people, as we are here. Yes. Having the information causes you to act. And that forces governments and forces MPs to pay us attention as they are now doing. In Cologne, in Cologne it was a small group, I mean half the size of this. A church group put it on, and it was meant for about an hour, lots of questions, reported in every major newspaper, so there you go. The Parliament doesn't get a run, but the local church group does. And where else did we go? Dublin was good. They were very enthusiastic. I didn't have to. So I just mentioned in the same style as I mentioned here, the British judiciary. And they ran with it. So they have a long experience of the British judiciary.
Very long.
Somewhere else. Oh, and I went to Brussels, and we had a good. There was 240 attended there, 80 MEPs or 80 officials, MEPs and leaders of unions. The leader of the French union who embraced me and said, I'm going to go and insist that Macron gives Julian asylum. So I'm very strong. And that was, who else was there? Oh, there was an oddity there. Matthew, who's an MEP for the Brexit Party, so he's like way over there on the right. And if he walks a little further, he'll fall off the edge. So he attended and gave me a hug and said, go, whatever I can do, I'm there. But so that was, in this game, I learned a little bit. You become politically agnostic because all you want is to get your son out of the, somebody from the left and the right.
Politically agnostic is quite a good segue to my next question, which is going to be about Australian support for Julian Assange. Earlier we heard Philip Adams talk about his amazing petition, the fourth biggest so far ever in Australia and still growing. Philip Adams also referred to a parliamentary support group for Julian Assange, and I'm not sure if everybody here is aware of that group, but it is a bit of a motley crew, you might say. We have two members of the Greens there, Adam Band and Peter Wish-Wilson, also two independents, Andrew Wilkie's there, Zari Stegall, and but also Barnaby Joyce and George Christensen, two members of the Labor Party, and I forget who else. We've also had some other prominent Australians come forward in support of Julian Assange, including Kerry O'Brien, of course, veteran ABC reporter, widely respected. And we have had what you might call political prisoners freed before, and they have had intervention from people in government. I can think of, let's say, David Hicks in Guantanamo Bay, Timothy Weeks, James Ricketson, the filmmaker from Cambodia, and also I'm sorry to say I forget the name of the nun who's recently returned home from, I think it's the Philippines. How significant are recent developments here in Australia in support of Julian Assange in terms of the movement towards his freedom? Do you think we're getting closer?
Well, I just had thank you. I just had a chat with Philip Adams, and he says that they can't give all their questions that they hold up come unravelled, and that now we are making the running. We hold I suppose the socio-psychological high ground. With Barnaby, he crossed the floor for Hicks. So he's an interesting, he has a particular view, and he has the political courage, but he's good for us because Barnaby's got a terribly loud voice. What he says reverberates. So it's really good. The group that are together, I've met them all, they're all good men. I particularly I find George Christensen, who is on the opposite end of the political spectrum to my leanings. I find him a charming companion. I spent some time in his office. He apologised for doing so little for Julian, and said, "What can I do?" Describe. We wrote a letter to Maurice Payne. So you just, us together. It's us who are against that you use the expression powers that be, but it's us that force the issue. And we bring Barnaby along with us, or Peter Wish-Wilson, who's a lovely man and very similar in political leaning to myself. We will force the United States and our government at the highest level to negotiate to bring Julian home.
Yeah.
Thanks for answering my questions, John Shipton. I'd like to hand over now to Jim Beatson, who I may also acknowledge as one of my mentors.
Hi John, what's the state of Julian's mental and physical health right now?
Oh, his health is not good. He lost 15 kilos. He's pretty skinny now, and not very strong. He's taken upon himself to get a little better. So his cell is about 3 meters long. So I think he covers that in 4 strides, he's walking from, I think it's from Paris to Nice. Anyway, he gets the number of steps and the kilometres from major cities, and he walks up and down his cell, to get physically well. Mills's report with the 2 doctors on Julian's well-being and psychology illuminates 9 years of persecution with an increasing intensity, ceaseless. The thing he faces constantly is that it's endless, and now it looks also is 175 years, so it's endless, it's ceaseless. There's no end to it. And that is a psychological pressure of the greatest kind. He knows his room in the embassy better than you know the back of your hand. Every crack, every little paint peel, every thread hanging off the curtain, he knows as intimately. That's his entire horizon for 7.5 years. He's become really attached and concerned and worried about his friends. Because anyway, he has become very, very, very concerned. So I'd like to describe a bit more. He suffers from depression, so he's in a pretty dire circumstance overall. I'd just like to quickly give you an insight into Julian Assange and WikiLeaks. That shows there, even the terrible circumstance that he's in. So James Ricketson was in a cell in Cambodia with 140 others, about this big. They sleep side to side, touching as one toilet. He sent an email to Julian, and Julian answered within 2 hours. When the collateral murder video, you saw all those men murdered, slaughtered, and the children. Julian agreed with Kristen that they'd put names to these people. They had families, you know, mothers, fathers, uncles, children. So Kristen, at the risk of his own life, this is really important, at the risk of his own life, went to Baghdad and negotiated to go into Sadr City, where the men were from, and to give them names, these people, and also interview the relatives of the 2 Reuters journalists that were killed. And they only managed to find 2 names. It's really important, you know, to name the dead. Every town you go in Australia, little towns, they have an obelisk in the centre, and they'll have 1914 to 1918, and a list of the dead. Really important. Shows that in WikiLeaks there's a deep compassion.
Yeah.